Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And if you get anything from my work, a connected on an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description. That helps me keep afloat. Allycatcreations211.com is where you can see my portfolio of artwork and creations that I make. And if you're interested in purchasing any of that stuff, I do it privately. Please email me. That will also be at the bottom of the description of this video. If you would like to support the channel, I have a 3D membership at the moment, where I got my members only video up, the first one. It's an oracle reading. And I also do monthly giveaways and raffles and stuff like that. And we had a drawing yesterday, and some of my paintings paintings are going to be homed into beautiful places. So if you're interested in the 3D membership, the links are around here on my channel. Go find them. It's a nice way to support me and the channel. It is snowy and really cold out, but I am not feeling the best today. But quantum AI and metaphysical ponderings, because the Schumann is going spiky spike, and I've been getting channeled a lot of goodies. Spirit gave me some things to explore. We're going to go about that later. But I do have two articles here, and if I find something else, I will share it. The algorithm on my Facebook has not been showing me much. And I just don't know what's going on with that. But this new one, newly discovered quantum state could power more stable quantum computers, and a new 2D chip can tap into it. By Peter Ray Allison, published February 5th, 2025. Scientists in Korea using 2D semiconducting materials discovered a new quantum state that could pave the way for more reliable data storage in quantum computers. So here's what I say to everybody who thinks this quantum system is doing jumping jacks. They're still figuring out quantum data, qubits, and quantum states, and what to do with them. So what are they really calling a quantum computer? I don't know. Maybe a supercomputer, but not necessarily. Like maybe the earliest Apple computer might be what is going on in the quantum world with what they say is a quantum computer. Just saying. And have they been hiding this information from us? I don't know, because these people are probably in the sleepy stage of, I'm just going to do what I'm told and make some great experiments happen. And here we go, new quantum states. Sure that people are hush hush to not tell anybody their discoveries, but I hold out hope in some aspects. Scientists have discovered a new quantum state that engineers can harness in a two-dimensional 2D semiconductor chip to control quantum information more reliably than ever before. It provides a promising lead into a new method for extracting quantum information from subatomic particles. That's a big, huge thing right there. Recent advances in ultra-thin 2D materials, which are only a molecule thick, have created promising candidates for computer chips that pack more power into much less space. 2D semiconductors also offer fantastic opportunities for quantum computing. Quantum entanglement, whereby two subatomic particles can share information over time and space through coherence, is highly delicate. but essential to processing calculations in parallel rather than in sequence. Preventing decoherence, the loss of quantum properties in a subatomic structure, is essential for quantum entanglement to be effective in quantum computers. But 3D structures are highly prone to thermal influences, like heat, or stray electromagnetic waves, and usually collapse within fractions of a second. This is where 2D materials come in. Maintaining coherence in a 2D material is much easier, as they are less prone to these thermal influences that collapse quantum coherence. Although coherence mechanisms have not yet been well understood in 2D materials, a new study published October 9th in the journal Nanoletters described how scientists discovered a new quantum state that can maintain longer periods of coherence. They also identified a mechanism calling quantum entanglement in this new quantum state, thus also proposing a new method by which quantum information can be controlled and extracted from. Specifically, for the first time, they observed that extraction formation process in conjunction with Floquet states using spectroscopy with a 2D semiconductor. The scientists observed the exactron formation, which occurs when a photon excites an electron into a higher energetic state. The excitron is a quasi-particle consisting of an electron and positively charged hole that are bound together. Bound together? Bound together. A further benefit of 2D materials over controversial semiconductors is that an exactron has strong binding energy levels in quantum systems driven by a time periodic field. In this case, the driver is short bursts of photons. Quasi-stationary states known as Floquet states can occur. These have properties that differ significantly from those of the original underdriven systems in equilibrium state. The new state is conjunction of these two conditions. We have discovered a new quantum state known as the excitron Floquet synthesis state and proposed a novel mechanism for quantum entanglement and quantum information extraction. So that's huge. That's a new word for my vocabulary, Floquet. But once again, what is being proposed to us, thus said the people? Is it old technology or new? Has this been on the hush-hush radar, or is this really being discovered now? Upstairs gives me the now and not the latter. So when people are talking about quantum states of banking, computing, and all this other beautiful stuff, they still haven't figured out a whole crap load of fun that would make any of this tangible in our world at current moment, time, space. So if I want a computer to read my quintessence, I honestly don't think it can, because they still haven't gotten down the states of quantum entanglement yet. And they're forgetting about string theory. Well, time can tell. But I offer the perception that, like most things, we're being projected this beautiful, fanciful stuff. Does it actually exist, or is it still in workings of existing? As articles like this I read quite often, especially when I find them on my channel, through my social medias, and I read, it doesn't seem like quantum computing is figured out just yet. in its bigger totality sense. Is there quantum computers? I'm sure there is, but what model level are they at? And just like the technology of today, like your phone is now a computer, who knew back when we were still using CDs and our big, massive motherboards? Um, what goes on? We didn't know. At one point, you can only play Snake on your cell phone and have to do the number thing to text. So we've come a very long way in a short amount of time. But I think when we are looking into a 4D consciousness, we're looking into higher states of expansion of thinking. This stuff is still in its infancy, and I would just hold people who project quantum computing and quantum anything with the word quantum in it, I would hold them to understanding that these scientists who are brilliant getting channeled the information are still trying to figure out these things and make them become tangible and workable and functionable in our time space of now. It's not there yet. So I don't know what people are getting hoodwinked or told, because I'm seeing this still an ego clash happening in the world. Like, I don't need you to listen to me. I might go over your head a bit, but my goodness, we need to take a deep breath. People are so adamant about their perception, they're not willing to take others' perceptions on or even allow information in. Even if you don't necessarily comprehend all of the concepts, you know what you can comprehend? The fact that I am reading articles that are telling you that they're still advancing quantum computing. So what thus said is quantum computing, and what actual make, model, and version are we getting if we're talking about money and the way things in the world are going to be ran off of? If they're not perfected, why are we using it? Because if it's not perfected, there will be breaches and there will be buggies and glitches and whatever have you. And what paradigm are you shifting into? Is it the Terminator timeline or the cyborg timeline, which is the AI timeline? Or are you going to the organic New Earth timeline? And that's the one I want to go to. Sorry, I have hiccups. The next article, scientists produce a particle of light that simultaneously accessed 37 different dimensions. Oh, they're just proving what I say all the time. No, I'm joking. Um, it's got us beat by 34. Darren Off, I read a couple of his stuff once in a blue moon. Published February 3rd. The Greenberger Horn Zillinger GHZ paradox describes how quantum theory cannot be described by local realistic descriptions. A new study takes this GHZ paradox to new heights to just see how non-classical the quantum world can get. In the process, their experiment includes photons in 37 dimensions, taking science even further down the strange quantum rabbit hole with the hopes of finding applications in the higher dimensional systems. Finally, someone listened to me in the ether. Yes. And it doesn't need to be me. It's just what the information I receive out of the ether and what I put back into the ether, maybe somebody picked it up. Thank you. Now they work on, so they got the dimensions. Let's go work on densities, scientists. Densities, because densities are within dimensions. There's lots of densities within a dimensional space. Hi. I get excited, sorry. The reason why I'm getting excited is I'm going to post the link to the video that I've been talking about on my channel, unless you're new. I watch this YouTube. Oh, the freakies. Let me see if it will. No. It's about quantum information, panpsychism. And I'm gonna go over, I got Scribe to pull up what psych-panism is, and I'll go over it. And the reason why I think I'm discovering more of this fun stuff is because this classical physics stuff is going to slowly dissolve. And not to say that we don't need classical physics, we do when we're here, but we're advancing. So we're moving forward. And when you talk spiritual and metaphysical and you combine it with the quantum, panpsychism is a bit mind-blowingly awesome. But I'm going to challenge people who are into panpsychism to prove some of these physicists who understand it and the holographic aspect of our reality, but that rocks too have sentience, consciousness. Everything is made up of energy, and everything that holds energy or has energy that is a source, omnipotent, omnipresent, has consciousness of some sort. The vibratory state of the density that it's in is vibrating very, very, very slow. But if you go to Dolores Cannon's work, you will find that when in hypnosis, people have been the rock, the tree, the air, the fire. So is her hypnosis wrong? I don't think so. But let's get back to the article. I'm getting excited because this is where my channelings have been coming through. Classical and quantum mechanics don't really get along. It's true. As the science of the subatomic can get. Well, weird. Take, for instance, quantum entanglement, which says that the state of one particle can be determined by examining the state of its entangled pair, regardless of distance. This strange fact flies in the face of classical physics and even led Albert Einstein to famously describe the quantum quirk as spooky action at a distance. This is what is known as quantum non-locality, where objects are influenced across distances seeming beyond the speed of light, whereas classical physics follows local theory. The idea that objects are influenced by their immediate surroundings. This is a pretty sharp divide, as explained by the famous no-go theorem known as the Greenberger-Horn-Zellinger paradox, which essentially details how quantum theory cannot be described by local realistic description. Named for the physicist who described the paradox in 1989, GHZ type paradoxes show that when particles can only be influenced by proximity, they produce mathematical impossibilities. As New Scientist reports, the paradox can even be expressed through a calculation where 1 equals -1. This paradox is useful in showing how quantum properties cannot be described using classical means. But a new paper published in journal Science Advances decided to see just how strange these paradoxes could get. Essentially, an international team of scientists wanted to see how unclassical particles of light could get, and the results were maybe stranger than the author originally anticipated. This extremely technical experiment produced photons, or particles of light that existed in 37 dimensions, just as you and I exist in 3 dimensions, plus an additional temporal dimension. These photons require 37 similar reference points. This experiment shows that quantum physics is more non-classical than many of us thought. Technical University of Denmark's Zhang Hao Liu, a co-author of the study, told New Scientist, it could be that 100 years after its discovery, we are still only seeing a tip of the iceberg. Pulling this off is not an easy thing to do, as Liu and his team needed to feed a version of the GHZ paradox into coherent light, even in color and wavelength, so that they could easily manipulate the photons. This essentially resulted in the most non-classical effects in quantum world that's ever been created, Liu told New Scientist. We believe that this work has opened several avenues for future research, the authors write. We hope our findings can be used to build even stronger quantum advantages in high-dimensional systems. Finally. In other words, if we've only discovered the tip of the iceberg, just imagine what quantum breakthroughs are lurking just below the surface. See how profound this stuff is? It's profound. It might not be something that tangibly I can do in math and do it, but I can comprehend it. And this just brings into the question that I bring up with the med beds and stuff of that nature. Things on the local scale, local as in here, local, this is locality right here, right? And there's millions of particles and photons and things whizzing past me at great neck speed. Any one of those things can be entangled with inference or something that interferes with the wave or something that supplants within the wave that changes the wave function, and your reality shifts, or the subatomicals open up in different locales. Portals, dimensional spaces. We all like to see these tangible things, and many people have already seen some sort of portal or felt them in their lifetimes. You're just not necessarily recognizing why you're taken off your locomotion and you wobble and you're like, what was that? It's just quantum states unfolding in front of you, and maybe some interference in the waveform. We'll see. So that's popular mechanics. I'm going to drop the links there. I'm going to share my screen. So Jason Paget posted this, and a lot of people have not been able to like visually comprehend when I say the multiverse. And this is a very good depiction of what that possibility can look like. And you see the strings of entanglement that lead to different loops and cycles of things that you can jump into until you get to the 0 point. So if you see all the different pictures within the bubbles, and those are the bubble parts of the multiverse, you can experience any one number of these millions of different bubbles. This is just a depiction, and string yourself into that reality by quantum entanglement. So I thought this was a very fascinating photo. This was also another beautiful fascination of mine. But also on there, I would like to read, if it will let me. The holographic universe, the ultimate Groundhog Day, the sum over histories, each ray a possible timeline. Ever feel like you're stuck in a loop? Like you kept making the same mistakes, dating the same type of people, or somehow always end up spilling coffee on your favorite shirt? Well, good news. According to quantum information holography, QH, QIH, you might actually be right. Welcome to the cosmic rerun. In QIH, the Bekenstein bound sets a hard limit on how much information can be stored in a given space. This means the universe, big, mysterious, and seemingly infinite, actually has a finite number of possible histories. That's right. All of reality is just one big cosmic DVR, playing out every possible episode of existence until, well, it runs out of fresh material and starts rerunning old episodes. It's a good perception. So if you're getting a sense of deja vu, you should be. It's not just a glitch in the matrix, it's a fundamental feature of reality, the quantum do-over. Imagine the universe as the ultimate Groundhog Day, every event horizon, which in QIH is basically a qubit, stores and processes information, and when everything collapses at the singularity, the universe just starts over. But here's the catch. It doesn't necessarily start exactly the same way. Think of it like a video game with a limited number of saved files. Each time you play, you might make slightly different choices, but ultimately you're working with the same set of levels. One day, maybe, just maybe, you'll get it right. Why is this great news? First of all, it means nothing is truly lost. The brilliant idea you forgot, it might come back around in another version of reality. That opportunity you missed, it could be still waiting for you in another quantum return or rerun. And if you completely botch things this time, don't worry, there's always another loop. Even better, since reality is built on stacked event horizons that entangle and interfere each time the universe replays itself, there's a chance it gets a little better. Maybe you finally get that job. Maybe you meet the right person. Maybe this is the version of the universe where you don't accidentally hit reply all. The cosmic punchline. So what's the takeaway? Life does come with a reset button. You just don't remember pressing it. But that's okay because QIH is correct. You're not stuck, you're refining. The universe isn't just repeating itself mindlessly. It's learning, evolving, stacking probabilities until it gets things right, and so are you. Embrace the loop. Keep trying, keep loving, keep learning, because even if you don't get it right this time, there's always another rerun. And to an extent, I agree with that because that's how we've evolved. And I would say that's if we're going to look at the holograph, we're looking at it in a third dimensional sense, and that is, in my estimation, pretty on point with just this. But many of us are out of this state of consciousness of 3D. We're already in 4D thinking, expansion to 5-6 already, and our thinking process is out of the loop of 3D. The body is still rerunning, but the mind already expanded outside of the matrix of that hologram. Even though you're in one now, you take yourself out and you're viewing a different viewpoint. So it's just interesting, another perception to take in. And if that aligns with you, great. That's why I read these things. They're mind expansion, right? You don't have to believe it. You don't have to think or align with it. But just the probability and possibility that that exists is pretty damn cool. Not that I want to rerun every mere why did I fail event. And if I don't get the job or I don't upgrade myself now, and that's for many of us. Clock is still ticking. Still ticking. Till it doesn't. This is from Popular Mechanics. Scientists say an antimatter engine could be the key to interstellar travel. There's only a few things standing in our way. Caroline Delbert published January 13th, 2025. Antimatter can produce more energy than anything else we know of, but it's very fickle. A new energy analysis explains what we need in order to progress with antimatter propulsion. While an antimatter engine is very far off, researching it could yield other discoveries as well. Scientists found, hang on, sorry, wrong sentence. Scientists from United Arab Emirates University have laid out a suggested roadmap for developing an antimatter engine. While antimatter research is very hypothetical and not yet in the experimental phase as we know of right now, adding my own little verbiage there, researchers believe it could eventually be an option for space travel at higher velocities. Swanson Amira and Abdel Hamid Murad's State of the Field paper on the subject appears now in the journal International Journal of Thermofluids. A research review like this is not an advocacy or position paper, and it's not an outline for how to build or even design an antimatter propulsion system, just an update on where the research is at the moment in time. A kilogram of matter antimatter annihilation releases a whopping energy that's over 250 times greater than that of a nuclear fusion and over 8 orders of magnitude, 108, more than chemical combustion. The paper states, the energy that this reaction releases is ridiculously giant. It is higher than any reaction known in physics. Unfortunately, our theoretical knowledge of antimatter is not enough. To study it for any practical application, scientists must find a way to create and sustain more antimatter particles at a time than we currently can. Antimatter is created by colliding two particles together at high enough speed that one splits into two pieces, matter and antimatter, that fly apart. Once this division has occurred, the researchers must suspend the antimatter particle so it doesn't recombine with the regular particle. Typically, this is done using something like optical tweezers, powerful laser beams that use light to trap a particle. But this process doesn't work like a Tupperware container, where you can just collect antimatter particles until you have enough to build an engine. Storing solid or liquid antimatter in contact with any state of matter is impossible. Antimatter keeps on annihilating with matter in rapid rates. Therefore, the only and best option is to use magnetic, electrostatic, or electromagnetic suspension of solid antimatter in a vacuum. These types of suspensions have so far only held a few particles for a tiny periods of time, and they require enormous amounts of energy even to do that. So it's just a plausible theory. If enough funding and efforts, and there's a key word right there, were devoted to further research on this technology, they said, and a solution to utilize annihilation's energy was found, the interstellar and human interplanetary missions wouldn't be deemed impossible. Indeed, just not impossible means a lot at this point in the antimatter research. Fun times. Hi. Gotta love people. So the interesting things about what I've been getting downloaded, Spirit put a video in my way, and there's some arguments I have. I've heard of panpsychism, and it's probably where my belief system or perception system or opinion stems from. And I had no idea. But this is on Scribed. Oops. Nope. Poopy doopy. I'm going to have to figure out how to get this document. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button and now it's gone. Not the article, the link. Because I was gonna put it in my links section over here, but nope. So this is something interesting, because I obviously, for those of you that don't know, Scribed has just opinion pieces and a lot of people that write articles or have PDFs of fun things, and just looking at different things to subscribe to the idea. Nisha comes up and I have to read this and I'll read it with you. So let's get excited because I don't know what this is going to say, but if it's Nisha, it's probably good. Maybe. So this is Nisha's Panpsychism as the Equation of Mind and Matter by Frederick Ulfers. I'm totally butchering that last name, and Mark Daniel Cohen. Among the many and varied interpretive approaches taken to Nisha's work, one that is gaining in participation among scholars, but that remains inadequately explored, in the intricacies and subtleties of the thought it reveals in the reading of Nisha as an ontological thinker, yes, as a philosopher of nature of the real. Among the continuing series of analyses in books and articles, Nisha is closely examined for his formulations on the transvaluations of values, the psychology of resentment, the destructive influence of religious belief, and a range of specifically and solely human concerns, issues that arise within the realm of human perception and thought. However, relatively little is observed regarding his views on nature of the universe as it is unto itself, beyond the scope and interpretation of human conception, as the foundation of the human, as much as it is of elsewhere, rather than as the result of human thought, as it is beyond the limits of direct and comprehensible experience. In short, Nisha continues to be viewed rarely as the ontologist rather than a phenomenologist, addressing concerns that bear no implications regarding how a human being ought to live. It is the position of the authors of this paper that a significant portion of Nisha's thought is devoted to the proposition of the real that is evidently intended to have the credibility and the principles of legitimacy of a scientific theory. From the birth of tragedy, in which Nietzsche devotes much of his thinking to the nature of not just human life, but the world itself as it is, he thinks accurately portrayed by Greek tragedy. To many of his late notes in the I can't see that. Sorry, guys. That's my another language, which are dedicated to a developing theory of processual world, a world where intrinsic continuity is that of process rather than stabilized entities, a world essentially of becoming rather than being. A theory closely aligned with the thinking in The Birth of Tragedy. Nietzsche demonstrates a continuing interest in formulating an accurate idea of what the world is, an idea that is beyond the range of normal human thought, a conception of the world that is inconceivable to the ordinary human mind. Pause. This is where I feel a lot of people are challenged when listening to me, because most people can only see the tangible universe that is in their reality at this now moment. A lot of people can't see the beautiful, imaginative wantings of a prosperity, abundance, and what does that look like? Well, we don't know what the new world is going to look like. Why? Because it's not in reality in the now moment. It's something we're emerging to, and it's this object in itself that has yet to be obtained. And most people need tangible evidence to make sure that it's real. But what happens in quantum states, does particles you can't see that yet still exist are tangible unless you have like that $100,000 worth of equipment to view? Do you believe it? Do you believe in the radio waves? There are so many things in this world that you can't tangibly see or feel or experience until you merge your vibration and your frequency to that state to even have a glimpse of it. That's why a lot of people have experiences and yet never talk about those experiences, because they don't think it's tangibly real and that it occurred, which it has. But this is a lot of the reasons why most people can't tangibly understand the things that I say, because it's a fool's journey into the void of unknownness. And very much what is just being described here. Nietzsche's ontological conception is one that he formulated in a number of specific theories he framed primarily during his last functioning years and that he never published in full, but that can be reconstituted from his unpublished notes. The theories can be considered to be conceptually synonymous, varying formulations built out of and illustrating the same basic principles of the universe as Nietzsche conceived it: the will to power, the eternal reoccurrence of the same, Nietzsche's stipulation of time as composed of discrete components, which he labeled the time atom theory, and one further formulation. For all the obscurity that continues to hang about Nietzsche's ontological speculations, one of his theoretical formulations has been more thoroughly overlooked than the others. What the authors of this paper believe can justifiably be characterized as panpsychism. What we mean by panpsychism, or we might as readily use the term pan-experimentalism, is Nietzsche's attribution of psychical aspects to what calls in his Nachklass the Wesen der Dinge, the German, the essence of material things. It is a worldview that is distinct from traditional idealism in several regards, particularly that the events of the world are not merely matters purely of experience, sensations in their essence, but are, to a degree, capable of experiencing in themselves. They are, in short, not just objects of experience, but to a limited degree, subjects of experience. Chief among the psychical qualities possessed by the full circuit of reality are or feeling or memory. Everything is in German, guys, so sorry. Qualities that are not attributed specifically to and not isolated among either individual human beings or individual living entities. Rather, finding is a quality that pervades the stuff of the world and is present down to the most essential components of the real. The push, the impact of one atom upon another presupposes feeling. A lot of German here I have to read. The condition of substance devoid of feeling is only a hypothesis, not based on experience. Thus, feeling is a property of all substance. There are feeling substances. What Nietzsche is doing in this is to treat matter as not entirely apart from psychic, mind, or experience in their most generic or rudimentary meaning and finding as feeling. But differently, Nietzsche ignores the line between mind and mindless matter, or being the organic and inanimate, recognizing what he refers to the binding together of the organic and the inorganic. Nietzsche's attribution as psychic qualities to all that exists should not be surprising, given even the rudiments of the idea of will to power, in particular the recognition that will to power does not create the material and eventualities of the world, but manifests itself as those eventualities and apparent objects, enacting them in such a way that water enacts waves, which do not thereby exist as independent self-sustaining objects. Yes. Nietzsche makes the matter all the clearer by also attributing a quality of self-initiation, a quality of willing to all entities, or more precisely to all events, which for Nietzsche are the sole constituency of apparent entities. The stipulation of an innate quality of willing or self-initiation is an element of his rejection of what may be called classical cause and effect mechanics. Events do not arise out of and are not compelled by preceding events. Events that we ordinarily take as forcibly triggering the events that appear to proceed from them. Rather, events are self-determining and self-directing, or more precisely, auto-generative, a quality that is one of the most distinguishing and defining aspects of the will to power. The dominating principle in this is one of autopoiesis, a self-organizing drive that is the nature of the world and all its constituent events, whereby it and they create themselves out of themselves, subject to and illustrated of no causal principles such as efficient cause and final cause. The world and its component eventualities have neither outside initiating factors nor ultimate properties. They are driven by the internal quality comparable to the will, that is pathos, and agon, or suffering. This will, the will to power, is the creative principle of the universe, and it is what Nietzsche calls Urshmer. I am not butchering that. A suffering primal and eternal, the sole ground of the world, the suffering at the heart of the world, the pathos, is the essential nature of the real, the essential nature of will to power. The pathos at the center of the world is the primordial contradiction and primordial pain, the contradiction of things struggling with their own opposites, their internal opposing tendencies or forces that cause the birth of new phenomena in unending creation, like an overflowing of an excess of potential. Excess revealed itself as truth. The contradiction is I can't with these words. An interpretation or cosmic unity of opposites that renders even the primordial pain intricate with its opposite. I don't know how long this goes on, but I'm trying to find some other things. Okay, so going through and through here, there's a point to why I'm reading this. Nietzsche's ontology can be characterized as that of punctic form, however you pronounce that, universe, a universe rooted in discontinuity. Time taken at face value, there is a certain initial difficulty in determining how a conception of the world as composed of discrete elements that are self-existing, each existing in its own right rather than as a result of causal influence of preceding events or the purpose-driven influence of ultimate goals, and that must perforce possess a principle of interrelationship, differs from the standard vision of the world as an extensive realm populated by individual, self-identical, enduring substantial entities that in their occurrences and eventualities interact with each other. It would appear at first blush that this is the standard conception of reality poured into a new bottle, with the innovation of Nietzsche's ontological view amounting to a distinction without a difference. To appreciate the radical nature of Nietzsche's discontinuous, atomized universe, one must comprehend the structural principles by which it is organized. Becoming or the actions of will to power, formulations that become conceptually synonymous as one works one's way through his reasoning, are not the discrete. Foreground activities that constitute the activities of the real, the components of the world and its story, its history, occurring in an extension in a continuous space and over a continuous time, in which they are suspended in the way we think of the entities and events of normal, apparent physical reality, as suspended in the space that is the universe, at its most essential and the time that is progressively transpiring present. Instead, for Nietzsche, the discontinuity is fundamental, not in the sense that it is a condition outside or beyond the nature of the world and instigating the nature by means of causal influence, but rather in the sense that discontinuity is the root nature of things and is responsible for other aspects of reality by the way of necessary, inescapable implication or simultaneous aspect. In other words, the discontinuity is the background condition of Nietzsche's universe. The eventualities of the process are not played out in a continuous space and time, but in space and at moments, each in its own space and of its own moment, each its own space and moment. There is no overall stage upon which the events of the world can be played out. There is no single encompassing space, an unfolding stream of time that consumes them all. There's a lot to dig into this, but I'm going to read more. But I figured this was like, okay, I got to read this with you guys because this is exciting stuff. Because people picking apart Nietzsche is like my favorite thing because he's genius. Okay, there's another article on Scribes. And I'm only bringing this to you guys because this is very interesting for me because of the divine neutrality I practice, the non-duality, which is a very much a Hindu component of things, but I'm not Hindu. I don't claim to be. And nor do I really know much about the wise words that thus have said. I'm taking this once again from a divine brought it to me approach. And as much as this doesn't necessarily do quantum AI metaphysics, it is metaphysical. The reason why I'm bringing this information, even though it's just ponderings at this moment in time, is it's not well thought of in the world because we're still in a dualistic limitation and separation paradigm. A lot of people don't believe that they create their own reality, that everything that is within physical nature is created by them. And not to say I made this oracle card. No, someone else made this oracle card. I bought it. It's manifested here. But all things here are thus said source, created. For all fractals and omnipotent and omnipresent components of source. And each one of us are a fractal of that source. And I created an art piece. Source is also thus creating it. Everything here vibrates and has a frequency, whether it be this card, which I show when I'm doing oracle cards, I get a vibration off of the card that I need to pull for a collective. Everything is thus said, even in its little particles and atoms and qubits, vibrates. It's not an easy topic to illustrate or to explain, but just going and mulling through Nisha, because I always say will to power, your will of intention stems from philosophy. It's a very in-depth conversation that I'm going to untangle eventually because I'm going to read all these articles off of Scribed. But this one is Hypnosis, Panpsychism in Action, 2008. This is Michael Weber. Sorry, I have ding-dongs going on in my background. Let me shut thus said ding-dongs off. Unfortunately, I just respond to that. Sorry about that, guys. Just side note, a person I graduated high school with, um, knew him very well. His wife went missing and was just found. I don't know if it was today or the other day. It snails over here with my feed. Found passed and deceased. So I'm just getting all those updates because that article just came out. If you're on my Facebook, you will see it. I try to be a help wherever I can. Doesn't end. So this is panpsychism in action. Um, so I'm just gonna read some stuff. I'm just this is stuff to ponder for me. The argument proceeds in four main steps. First, we define the normal state of consciousness that we choose to call zero state in order to avoid the gate. I don't know that word, and that's probably not being projected out of my mouth. Derogatoriness, brain dyslexia, hi guys, of the concept of normality and to suggest straight away the existence of hierarchy of state. We furthermore underline, on the one hand, the presupposed non-dualism of common sense and consequent theoretical dualism of substantialism. Second, we peruse again the same three steps, but this time from a process standpoint. Consciousness zero is then relativized with the help of a genetic perspective that is anchored in the presupposed common sense through what has been called the biological theory of knowledge. The consequent processionism is sketched as a theoretical non-dualism. Third, the main consequences of this processualization, however that is pronounced, of the concept of consciousness are specified in three steps. The existence of a field of consciousness. Side note, quantum, hold it up there. That is structured by the concept of threshold, and that can be cautiously interpreted with the introduction of a scale of consciousness and a spectrum of vigilance. Fourth, the main consequence of the processualization of the concept of consciousness is implemented in the three steps. Whitehead's pan-experimentalism, that's what I was reading with Nisha, is differentiated from panpsychism. The nature of hypnosis is envisaged, and social political issues are discussed. I'm very excited to read this. But I'm gonna read common sense non-dualism. When the conscious interplay of embodied rational citizens is contextualized, we find in one direction uphill a practical non-dualism, and in the other downhill a theoretical dualism. The threefold meaning of sensus communis is helpful to name and specify the non-dualism that is presupposed in practice. According to Arden's fresh reading of Aquinas, common sense is made of three threads: the concerted functioning of the five senses, more precisely, I can't read that word when letters are, I'm skipping. When these letters are back, I can't do it. The sharing with the humans of the world quota context, and the sharing with other living creatures of the world as environment. Let us also pinpoint a similar attempt in Whiteheadian studies. Griffin speaks of hardcore common sense notions to qualify the universal and primordial beliefs that human beings do not question in practice. Humans share an animal faith of sorts in their fundamental freedom, in the causal efficiency of their actions, in the existence of values and a temporal drift. All these occur in a realistic atmosphere. Idealism is not to be found at the pre-rational level. Soft-core common sense notions belong for their part in doxa. They are culturally contingent and philosophically and scientifically insignificant. In conclusion, the dualism at work in Conscious Zero is buttressed on a world loyalty that is commonly ignored and philosophically obliterated by substantiatic dualism. The goal of the process ontological renew is to firmly anchor everyday consciousness in this deep experimental structure, and thereby to re-enchant the world. Whereas Nolans, the consciousness zero springs from a non-dualistic social network in the broad experimental sense of the word. It brings forth, by the sheer power of its abstractions, a fully fledged dualistic theory otherwise known as substantialism. Here also a quick overview of Aristotle is relevant to specify its applicability. Most of Aristotle's categories, starting with the category of substance itself, are based on even wedged to consciousness zero. In other words, they are adequate to depict the type of rationality exploited in everyday life, not the ultimate. In one follows Bowles' definition again, we obtain an acute depiction of a raw understanding of consciousness presupposed in most literature. The principle of identity requires that there is only one such thing as consciousness. The principle of contradiction claims that one cannot at the same time and in the same respect be conscious and not conscious. The principle of excluded middle adds that there is no third possibility. One has to be either conscious or unconscious. The overall intuition of consciousness, substantialism, is a two-state system of on and off type. The subject either totally conscious or totally unconscious. It pervades the well-known anecdote of Russell. I began to develop a philosophy of my own during the year 1898. It was Whitehead who was the serpent in this paradise of Mediterranean beauty. He said to me once, "You think the world is what it looks in fine weather at noonday. I think it is what it seems like in the early morning when one first wakes from deep sleep." I thought this remark horrid, but could not see how to prove that my bias was any better than his. At last he showed me how to apply the technique of mathematical logic to his vague and piggly world and dressed it up in Sunday clothes that the mathematician could view without being shocked. In conclusion, the virtue of Aristotle's system has to be reframed. On the one hand, his ontological pretensions have to be limited to mesocosmos, the names the world of middle dimensions, where humans dwell, neither the microcosm or the macrocosm, and process thought has thus to provide a way of recovering them. On the other, one can show that concepts such as praxis and dynamis something or other possesses a broader applicability than their substantial cradle, that they are crucial to all forms of philosophical systemization, and as such constitute a true Aristotelian legacy. This is like very, 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 very in-depth. The field of consciousness. Why I think a lot of this stuff, and I'm not going to go too far, I think I'm losing people. I'm just feeling the intention. Is that if we need to understand the quantum aspects of how we are perceiving our world, like I talk about all the time, we got to not only use the scientific approach of what is quantum states and subatomic particles, but how our consciousness, our thinking mind, our rational mind actually sees and views and interprets the world. It's not just quantum mechanics and entanglement, it's also psychology and how you rationalize and interpret your reality, which goes into a lot of what I've been reading. These things are really important. I have to, in my own estimation, read this stuff to try to better hone in on when I'm talking, how do I clarify or get more scientific for those scientifically minded and not spiritually minded, although it's all one and the same. Just very interesting concepts and topics to explore. This is what Spirit dropped in my lap the last couple of days, and the influx of channelings have been all leading to this. And please go check out the link for that YouTube video that I was screaming about the other day. It was fantastic. Although the guy in the video, the physicist, makes some claims that I don't agree with. Because he's like, how can a rock be, like he's talking more, even though he's talking abstractly and in a he's not getting the spiritual component of essence and source God. He's more scientific, so he's not using source God. He's using science, which is great. But when you can go back to Dolores Cannon's work and see that you were the rock and you had essence, it was just on density 1, dimension 1. It still vibrates and holds memory and holds essence, and it has consciousness. Energy equals consciousness equals photonics equals light. So all things at some point, it might not register to the physical mind. What are you talking about, Allison? I'm not the blade of grass and I'm not the tree, but maybe I was once a tree, or maybe you are the tree because you're all things in one. You are everything and nothing at the same time. I know, what a conundrum. But there are very bright and beautiful people out there that are using really difficult language, but very descriptive language to help you understand. That's where I come in, to interpret these beautiful things and concepts. I'm still trying to figure out why I was given the non-duality, divine neutrality route. And maybe that just helps me to be more of a compassionate, loving, unconditional person to all things and beings, because I am of a higher sort. And that's not to put myself on a podium. I think more and more people are starting to understand that concept that God's all things, and I should not be in judgment of others. Let the energy do itself what it does. If you read and understand ontological mathematics, you don't need to do the math. You need to understand the components of how 3D works. Ontology in the mathematical schemes is what Tesla was preaching a long time ago. But now we're moving into subatomic particles and quantum states, and it's going to increase itself out of ontology and it's going to go into quantum. But we still need to discover the states of consciousness. Even if I don't agree with all of it, you don't need to agree with me either. But good pondering. Good pondering. I'm really glad scientists are really expanding the dimensional. And I know dimensional is not the way that they think, the way I'm thinking about dimensions. They're thinking more on like a tangible dimensional space, a numerical. I'm thinking actual locale and unfoldment of subatomic particles into perceiving quantum states as they change once you observe them. So really interesting stuff here. I wanted to get you guys into my head for a little bit. I don't do that often, but reading some of these papers and gives you guys a way of how I think, for maybe some of you to better understand me. Maybe. Probably not. I do want to read the description to this article. I was just reading because it gets confusing. This document discusses hypnosis and its relationship in panpsychism. It begins by defining a zero state of consciousness as rational discourse between two or more individuals, characterized by both rationality and physical presence. This definition implies a dualism between mind and body. However, common sense experience is actually non-dualistic, presupposing that mind and world are interconnected. While common experience is non-dual, philosophical theories often posit a substance dualism. The document will argue that a process philosophy informed by panpsychism provides a better framework for understanding consciousness and hypnotic phenomena, which is ghosts and what you find out that you are. So very interesting. Very interesting concepts. If you're interested in the same things that I am, Scribd is a great place to go. It is free for 30 days. Eventually, I'm going to have to let go of my subscription because can't afford it. I already paid for it when I had money, but still very useful in a lot of different avenues of thinking. But once again, it's opinion and in presenting ideas. It's not a factual this is the way it is and this is how it has to be. It's a lot of just people's perceptions on the world. And that's what I like about Scribd. So yeah, a very good pondering. 3 okay articles, not the best. One really good description of a photo that describes a lot of things that I say, even though it wasn't intended to be that way. We all interpret the world differently. Please keep my friend in your prayers. That's just devastating news. I'm just finding out today. I'm going to look at what I want to do for tomorrow's paint and sip. Those paintings are on sale. They're not expensive. So if you're interested in purchasing, I will eventually get those up on the website. Next weekend, I have a 4-day weekend. I will be doing a lot of photo taking and getting things back to best in my life. So until that time, sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within, be the shoulder, be the lighthouse, seed your truth, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. My gratitude to everybody. Check out channel memberships and keep pondering and keep expanding your thinking because it's going to keep going and the ride is amazing. So until the next one, guys, bye for now.